The auto industry is the backbone of American manufacturing and a critical part of our attempt to reduce our dependence on foreign oil. I would like to see the administration do everything it can to accelerate the retooling assistance that Congress has already enacted.
And he also said that he would taken a look at other policies that maybe could help the automakers in the future once he was in office. Phil, what do you think the automakers are hoping from the new president-elect?
Oh, they need more than money for retooling for future models, because there's not going to be future models if they have to slide into bankruptcy. What they need is financial assistance, and they need it right away. And there's no clearer example of that than if you look at the earnings today from Ford and General Motors. Forget about the third quarter losses. They were staggering, more than $7 billion combined. What you need to look at is the cash burn rate. Look at General Motors, burning through $6.9 billion in the quarter. That's $2.3 billion a month, $75 million a day. That's what General Motors is burning through. Current liquidity at $16.2 billion. They are sitting on between, well, they need between 11 and 14 billion. That's the minimum to operate the business day to day. So for General Motors, the real question becomes, do they have the financial wherewithal to avoid bankruptcy? And here's what Chairman and CEO Rick Wagner had to say earlier today about that.
We have no plans whatsoever to consider anything other than continue to run the business. We don't think anything positive would come out of any sort of consideration of reorganizations. I've seen pundits write this stuff, but you can't sell cars to people under that circumstance. So I think it would be a devastating impact, not just for GM, by the way. It would roll across. It'd be a domino effect across the whole industry.
It is a little better, but not a whole lot better at Ford. They have more of a cash cushion, so bankruptcy is not an immediate threat. But the company did burn through $7.7 billion in the third quarter. Talking about that domino effect, when we talked with Ford CEO Alan Mulally earlier today, we asked him point blank, listen, if GM slides into bankruptcy, does it bring down Ford as well? Here's what he had to say.
Clearly, we're very, very interdependent. We have the same supply base throughout the United States. And so we're very interdependent. And so we're going to monitor that carefully, and I'll find out more about that right away, and then we'll take action.
The bottom line, Ford and General Motors need assistance from the federal government as quickly as possible. They pressed their case yesterday, Michelle. They are going to continue to press their case. If you want to put restrictions on them, or if the government wants to put some strings attached to any loans and say, listen, you got to move quicker with more fuel-efficient vehicles, they'll take those restrictions because they simply need the cash as quickly as possible at this point.
All right, let's play what if, Phil. What is the worst-case scenario? What if they don't get that assistance, and as you imply, maybe all three go under or go bankrupt? What would happen to the American economy? Can it survive? Joining us tonight, we've got Peter Schiff. He's president of Euro-Pacific Capital, author of The Little Book of Bull Moves in a Bear Market. Steve Leisman is CNBC senior economics reporter, and Phil stays in the mix, as well as Keith Boynton. Peter Schiff, let me start with you. Can the U.S. economy survive if the big three go under?
I think letting them go under is the best thing for the U.S. economy and for the auto industry. You know, we need to allow these companies to fail. Forget about the constitutionality of these bailouts, but the government needs to let GM or Ford or Chrysler fail if that's what has to happen, because we need an automobile industry in this country, but not this one. We need a competitive automobile industry. We need new management. If these companies go into bankruptcy, all the plant and equipment is still going to be here. It's just going to go under new management. These companies need to get out from under these labor contracts, these pension obligations, this health care expenditure. We need an efficient, vibrant automobile manufacturing industry, and we'll get one if these companies are allowed to fail.
Steve Leisman, is there systemic risk posed if some of these companies go under?
Not if you put it in perspective, Michelle. There's systemic risk regionally, but I'm not sure nationally. When you put the number of workers in the auto industry, even if you use some of the big multipliers that are out there, it just is not that big a business when it comes to the number of jobs out there for the whole economy. There's the autos in perspective. There's the big three, 239. All motor vehicle parts is 842. Department stores, 1.4 million. Leisure and hospitality and healthcare, all those things, much, much bigger. As a percentage of GDP, it's also quite a small industry. I know the guys are talking about big multipliers out there, but 239,000 jobs at the big three. This country loses more than 3 million jobs a month just in the churn of the job market.
But doesn't that, what about all the things people say about millions of jobs are tied to this industry. If that doesn't say it, then how do they justify that position?
Remember, the jobs aren't going to disappear. In fact, I think we'll have more automobile jobs under a new reorganized General Motors than we do now. Now, they're probably going to pay less, but, you know, they're overpaid right now. That's part of the problem. You know, we need a vibrant industry, and I think all these other companies, the auto supply industry, they're going to be in better shape if we have a competitive automobile industry. You know, that's one thing this country needs to do. We need to make a lot more things, a lot more cars, and we need to export them because we are in a giant economic hole right now, and we've got to produce and export.
Phil, you weigh in. What do you think?
With all due respect, Peter Schiff, no way. They're not going to have more jobs if these guys go under. This is the second biggest purchase somebody makes after their home. And I'm telling you right now, nobody's going to be buying a car.
No, Americans are through buying cars right now. We need to make cars and export them to the rest of the world.
Americans are through buying cars?
Look, we're too broke to afford any more cars.
Americans are through buying cars?
Yes, we're not.
Are you crazy?
No, I'm not. We're not buying cars. We're not buying homes. We're not buying television sets. We spent and borrowed ourselves into bankruptcy right now. We got to focus on producing stuff and exporting stuff to people outside this country that can actually afford to buy things.
But Phil, isn't there a possibility of a crisis of confidence, though, if the public sees that we let the auto industry just fail like that? Won't that have an impact on the economy?
We can't bail them out.
Crisis in confidence in Michigan. For decades, Phil, you keep on talking about this industry as something that's static. Is it time that we admit at least that this industry is not sized right? I know it has taken a ton of pain. It's taking a ton of pain now. But do we need this many automakers?
Look, there's no argument there, and there's too much capacity. Nobody's arguing that at all. The problem is, if you sit there and you shut down one of the big three, the other ones go, the auto suppliers quickly go. It's a cascading effect.
But we have to
make cars anymore.
We have to is that these labels, these brands aren't going to die. You're going to sell Jeep or Dodge or what have you. They're going to exist in some other entity. Somebody else is going to own them. So they're not going to go completely. It's going to streamline itself naturally. The things that aren't selling go away. The things that are valuable will stay. Somebody else will own it.
There's a couple of different questions on the table here. One is I think Phil makes an excellent point about the cash burn. You have had a shock to this industry that it makes sense to help them through here. That makes sense.
Steve.
But there's a broader question here about should this survive and what are the financial stakes here. Now, I will offer from an economics point of view, it is perfectly possible for a society to do the exactly uneconomic thing and keep an unviable industry going if it feels like it. Witness the agricultural industry in this country where we have subsidized it for years and years and years that should have been out. That could be on the table.
But Steve, what we got to do, Steve, we have to let the free market function. Whatever happens is going to happen, and nobody sees the consequences.
You know, Peter, that's not true, Peter. That's just not true. Let's get the economics out, Peter. We do not have to let 200,000 or 300,000 people hit the unemployment lines in a series of months if we don't want to.
Steve, the government can't stop it because when the government redirects, let me finish this. When the government redirects capital towards General Motors, it redirects it away from someplace else. So every GM job they save, they're going to destroy a job someplace else. The government can't do anything. We have to let the market function. We can't keep destroying efficient jobs and prop up overpaid managers and overpaid labor union workers. We need to let this market function properly. You know, we shouldn't have bailed out all these financial firms. We should have let these firms fail too.
And Steve, if we give them $25 billion now, won't they be back in 10 years for $50 billion?
They'll be back in 6 months.
What other industry is next?
Almost certainly, if we do not demand really serious structural changes, I would be a person who would support the government easing the transition to where the market needs to take it. Peter says let laissez-faire work right now, and Phil, I think, is saying you got to save them. They're viable companies. Am I right, Phil?
I'll take the car. I'll take the car.
We got to wrap it up, guys. Thank you, Phil. We'll be talking to you a lot in the